"Captain, we've got a ship approaching starboard," Ray reported, his voice tight with concern. Their mining vessel was far from any trade route, and the lack of an AIS signal sent a ripple of unease through him. His brow creased. This could only mean one thing: law enforcement or worse, pirates. "Leah, get Robin and Earl on the comms. Tell them to drop what they're doing and return to the ship now." "Aye, Captain," Leah responded crisply. The drill's low rumble reverberated through Earl's suit, a sensation more felt than heard. Above him, Robin was reloading a fresh chisel into the hydraulic ram. This meteoroid was stubborn, but as his mother used to say, the best negotiations are done with brute force. "Robin, Earl." Leah's voice crackled over the comms. "Abort the mission and head back. We've got an unidentified ship closing in." Robin and Earl locked eyes for a moment with a mix of annoyance and maybe just a hint of fear. It's not uncommon for mining crews to get robbed and ransomed, or worse, left to drift. "Copy that, Leah. We're coming in." The shuttle carrying Robin and Earl had just docked when the strange ship appeared on their scopes. This asteroid field wasn't as thick as the ones back in Earth's system, but it still managed to obscure their sensors long enough for the approaching vessel to slip through undetected. Maybe that's how they got there so quickly, or maybe they were just adrenaline junkies. Either way, it didn't matter now. They had arrived sooner than expected, and they definitely didn't look like cops. The real problem was they didn't resemble anything familiar at all. "What is that?" Ronald's voice wavered, betraying a nervousness Leah had never heard from him before. The approaching ship was egg-shaped, with sleek reflective lines running toward the front where they converged into a gleaming orb. 3 engines of unknown design were mounted along the sides and top. No law enforcement agency would have access to something like that, and no pirate would dare steal it, unless they had some powerful allies. "Sir, there's a lot of energy emitting from that thing," Leah stated as she faced her panels. Ronald grabbed the 1MC. By now, Robin and Earl would have their suits off and their radios in them. "Prepare battle station." As soon as he had said it, the eggs' reflective lines flashed to the center, and the mining ship, Nomad Sanctuary, was blinded by light as the shields, only designed for micrometeorites, stopped the bulk of the laser's power. The egg began to circle the mining vessel, firing every few seconds. The Nomad responded with weaker laser fire, good for sustained fire to cut rocks, but difficult to use on a moving target. The fight was short and very one-sided. The Nomad simply wasn't built for combat. Her shields were down, lasers damaged. The hull began to emit light smoke inside the vessel, and the powerful engine was half molten. The only equipment that seemed to still work was the communicator, although the asteroid field was hindering it. An SOS was still sent. Help would likely arrive hours too late. Then the hull shook as the egg mounted its aft end onto the Nomad's cargo hold hull section. A few minutes later, grinding could be heard. They were being boarded. Ronald was trying to decide whether surrender was a safer option, and the sound of Leah racking a 12-gauge made his decision for him. He smiled. Of course they would fight. This small crew had gone through too much together, and their ship name wasn't by accident. These were the only family they had. Even merciful pirates would usually kill one to keep the others in line. That wasn't going to happen. In the cargo hold, the steel hull finally fell, giving way to 6 hunched creatures, resembling twisted coal miners with sharp faces and 4 front-facing eyes. Their skin was gray and bare, with lumps protruding to carry excess fatty tissue. Standing at 7 feet tall, they seemed to have trouble with the strength of the Nomad's artificial gravity strength. They held large, curved rifles, black marked laser cyclers. At the moment they had nothing to shoot in the hold, empty except for extracted heavy metals and a worn mining shuttle. Once the crew determined that the cargo hold still contained an atmosphere, the 2 airlocks opened, and they immediately started firing. Robin, with a heavy mining laser cutter, the safety long since disabled, was cutting these strange boarders to pieces. Earl, with a replicate of a near-ancient repeater Kalashnikov, punched holes larger than his fist into the large targets. Ronald, the only one with an up-to-date weapon that wasn't just tinkered mining equipment, put small, clean holes into one with his coil rifle. Leah only got 2 rounds of shot off before the fight was over. To call it a fight was unfair. This was a slaughter. What in God's name are those? Robin spoke first, but everyone was thinking it. Everyone but Ronald. Humanity has been alone among the stars for their species' 600 years of space travel. So first contact being a boarding party now comprised of gray and green ground beef was certainly surprising, but Ronald was focused, and his only mission was to keep his family alive. If they pull off of us, their ship will destroy us, and I doubt this is their entire force. We need to go on the offensive. Ronald's words hung in the air like a sickness. They knew he was right. These strange creatures were aggressive, and they stood no chance in a space battle. But killing the first proof that humanity wasn't alone was grim. Earl sighed and was the first to move to the cut hull, weapon drawn. "Hey, Earl, look at their ship's hull. Better not use that." Robin was pointing at the edge of the cut, where the 2 hulls lay flat against each other. The Nomad's hull was thick steel, designed for surviving the dangers of heavy metal mining. The Egg's hull, however, was at most a 1/4 inch thick and had many ribs for support, indicating a weak hull. Earl nodded in agreement and picked up the alien rifle. A little fiddling around, and he successfully fires a recoilless laser down the unfamiliar passageway. Silently, the crew enters the Egg. Earl and Leah hunched down in front with Ronald and Robin behind them, aiming over them. The gravity shifts to about half strength as soon as the crew enters the passageway. At the end of the passage are 2 airlocks. The crew splits naturally and without words. Ronald and Leah to the left, Robin and Earl to the right. Zonashia lays in the corner of her cell, her head tucked behind her once brilliant and colorful plumage, now matted and graying. "I'm not supposed to live like this," the bird-like sentient thought to herself. It's been 3 weeks since her transport vessel was attacked by the pirates, and her family was having trouble paying the ransom due to the chaos caused by the war spreading in her segment of the galaxy. In that time, the others she was captured with were either released after ransom killed or died from malnutrition. She felt that her time was running out, and shook out a silent sob as her 4 taloned arms wrapped her body. She was kept in a makeshift brig, with one of the pirates standing guard. Just past the airlock, to the right, was a common area. At least she assumes it is. She's never seen it, but there always seem to be a lot of her captors going in or out of there. The airlock to the left lead to the entrance of the ship. There were other cells, but only 2 others were occupied. Next to her is a towering yokeraj, looking like a mix between a bear and a bull, but upright and bipedal. They are much more gentle than they appear, and this one was currently crying softly on its bed. The other was on the other side of the yokeraj, a zothorn, shorter in stature and covered in a thick pelt of spines, except for an exoskeleton of bone covering their exposed belly. He hasn't spoken a word since he arrived. They both were captured a week ago from a mapping vessel at the edge of known space. Only their captain had been ransomed. The pirates had just boarded another vessel, no doubt defenseless and weak. The pirates were cruel but cowards. She hoped that the pirates would just kill them so they wouldn't have to die like this. She's just glad that she can't actually hear the fighting from her cell. That would be too much to bear. It's been long enough. The poor victims must be dead or captured by now, and the pirates stripping their vessel. The left airlock opened, but instead of the expected pirates dragging in captives or goods, a burst of laser fire came through and sprayed the pirates standing guard. Then the right airlock opened, and a large laser shot cut down the first pirate out of the airlock, dead before his body could hit the floor, followed shortly by his head. The air then exploded in laser fire and tasted of ionized nitrogen. Zonashia did all she could to press herself into the wall. Her fellow prisoners did the same. A tall, soft-looking mammal, with fur on its head and cloth on its body, emerged from the left airlock and took cover behind the doorway for the right airlock. She swears he was hit by at least one of those laser rounds, but there he is still standing. When he turned his head, she nearly fainted. 2 forward-facing eyes met hers, and in his panting mouth were sharp fangs. One particularly brave pirate ran through the airlock. The predator turned its rifle to it, which seems to be the same the pirates are using, and pulled the trigger. Nothing happened. After a stunned second from both fighters, the predator simply raised the rifle and beat the pirate with it like a club. It was horrifying but effective. However, it left him completely open. Two more pirates ran through the airlock. One was immediately dismembered from a heavy laser. The other shot the predator several times. But this predator didn't die. He dropped his broken club, grabbed a piece of sharpened metal from his clothing, and impaled the pirate several times. The pirate's screams were sickening, but the new predators weren't done. With this, they both advanced. One with a bulky-looking laser rifle, the other with just a piece of sharp metal through the right airlock. Zonashia could hear the sounds of combat, savagery, and death fade as the onslaught continued away from her cage. She had never seen creatures like these, never heard of monsters that can seemingly absorb lethal laser rounds, never read about creatures that use sharpened metal instead of claws or teeth. By looking around, she could tell her fellow prisoners felt the same, but all were too terrified to speak, too shocked to sob. The crew met at the Egg's control room, with ballistic fire from the left sending pirates fleeing to the right, where Earl met the sole survivor with a knife to the chest. Ronald walked into the center of the room, glancing at all the unfamiliar controls, taking stock of the situation. "Are you two all right? Earl, what happened to your rifle?" "It ran dry on me. We're fine. Stings like hell, though. Leah and I will make sure we didn't miss any, and look at doing repairs. Robin, take Earl back to the Nomad. Make sure he's all right. Earl, you look like hammer trash." "I feel a little better than that. We passed by some sort of prison on the way here. It had aliens in cages. We should help them out." "Fine by me. Be careful, though. Maybe humanity's first alien encounter doesn't have to be all doom and gloom. And Robin, make sure Earl looks at his injuries." "Sure thing, Cap." Robin and Earl made their way back to the prison. The aliens in cages had very human behaviors, or at least animal. They all looked terrified. Earl looked at the bird-like creature he had spotted before, and it reminded him of a stray dog he saw in a very unpleasant visit to a failing colony. He's sure if the feathers weren't covering its body, he could see its ribs. Robin forcefully sits Earl on the deck of the passageway and reaches for his medkit. Earl lifts his shirt up, exposing the dozens of small, circular, second-degree burns and bruises left from the fight, some of them bleeding slightly. He winces as Robin applies disinfectant and bandages and lowers his shirt. Glancing back at the prisoners, he sees their demeanor has changed from terror to fear and curiosity. After a few seconds of searching, the pirate originally guarding Earl produced a set of translucent tabs, assumed to be keys. Earl used the keys to open the first cage, the one with the bird. As soon as the door opens, the creature lets out a weak song and tucks its head under its wing, looking as small as possible, only one eye exposed. About the size of a swan, but with slightly colored feathers, mostly matte gray. Earl walks towards the creature slowly, hands in front of him and open, trying to look non-threatening but utterly failing. He crouched directly in front of her and slowly reached a hand out and put it on the bird's back and wing. It was shaking terribly. It's all right. Earl felt completely useless at this moment. The bird made a couple more weak songs but never stopped shaking. A couple of dull clicking sounds came from the cell farthest from him. The Zothorn was standing in the center of the cell and trying to speak to them. Robin went there, and through a rough game of charades with a scared, oversized porcupine, the Zothorn managed to draw attention to the dime-sized device above its ear and gestured towards the dead pirates. Robin pulled two of these devices off of the more intact bodies, put one on himself, and gave the other to Earl, who was still failing to calm the shaking bird. "Excuse me, can you hear me now?" The clicking can still be heard, but the words came through the device like a slightly more elegant GPS. "Loud and clear. Let me get the door for you." Robin responded and headed towards the door. The bird peeked its head out, beak still partially buried behind its wing, and looked at the strange savage, giving soft, reassuring pats, and sang again, this time translated by the device. "What do you want from us?" Earl responded slowly. "I want you to help us save you.